Hey everybody, this is Jerry coming to you today with a look at a couple of things actually. Take a quick look at ink that I recently received, and at the same time we're going to take a look at how to change the nib on a Lamy Safari. Now, I've never done this before, so we're going to be doing this together. This is a Lamy Safari. It has a fine nib, and it is actually the first fountain pen that I ever purchased. I read a lot of blog posts about, what the best starter pen would be, and this pen always makes the list. And this is the pen that almost single-handedly made me decide not to do anything with fountain pens, not to buy any more fountain pens. I didn't like the way this pen wrote. And I also, there's a couple other things I didn't like about this pen in particular. I didn't like the grip. It's got this weird angular grip. It's not all that comfortable to hold and write with. And I'm not a big fan of how the pen posts. I mean, it feels like you're holding a tree, basically. So I thought maybe I was the only person in the world that didn't like the Lamy Safari. As it turns out, I may have just gotten a bad nib, or I may have just gotten a bad pen, because I ended up buying another Lamy Safari with a medium nib, and it writes great. The pen itself is just wonderful. And these Lamy Safaris, you can pick them up pretty much anywhere. Goulet Pens, Pen Chalet, Amazon. Here, for example, is the site Goulet Pens, where you can pick one up for less than $30, or right around $30, give or take. And they come in fine, medium, and broad nib sizes. So, basically take your pick. But I recently ordered an ink, Rohrer and Klingner. Man, Leipziger black, not even sure how to pronounce it. But I'm not really a fan of black inks in general. But in this case, I read this described as a complex black, and that kind of piqued my interest. But I kind of believe that when you're looking at an ink that has some complexity to it, or maybe has some sheen or some different colors to it, you really need to use something besides a fine nib. I just don't think a fine nib gives you enough of what you need in terms of the ink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick writing sample using the Lamy Safari with the fine nib, and then we'll change the nib. We'll change it to a broad, and we'll see how that goes. Like I said, I've never done it before, so we'll see. So there you go. This is what it looks like using the fine nib. And I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but it really does have kind of a slightly different color than just your plain run-of-the-mill black. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it. I don't know, maybe kind of a dark teal as it goes on, and then it seems to dry closer to a black. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and change the nib on this Lamy to a broad. Today I went down to our local pen store and picked up a broad nib for about about $14. And I watched a video on YouTube how to change it. So we're gonna see how this goes. So according to the video, simply you find the tip, find the little tip there. You can see it. It's got a little bit of a lip on it, and you put the cap against it, and basically pull. And look at that. Sucker comes right off. That's pretty easy. That's a lot easier than I thought it would be. Then you take the new nib, and what you do is you can see those little grooves right there. Kind of hard to see, kind of hard to focus on. But you take the new nib, line it up, basically just push it on. Look at that. And now in theory, I should have a Lamy Safari with a broad nib. And look at that. Boy, I sure like the way that writes. Just pours the ink onto the page. So this is a Lamy Safari. This is a broad nib. Boy, I've never used a broad nib. That is just huge. It's my phone ringing. I'll ignore it for now. Boy, I'm not sure if I can get used to having such a broad nib. So wet. That is an amazing difference. But I don't really see a whole lot of shading. I was kind of expecting some shading, quote unquote, out of a complex black, but with the broad nib, it actually just looks more like a black. No. It has some interesting properties to it. Let's see what happens as it dries. Yeah, it's pretty wet. I don't know. Now it definitely has some color to it. Although it's hard to say for sure, but it's definitely not just a very straightforward black. Anyway, it was worth it. It was worth changing the Lamy over to a broad nib, and I think it was worth waiting about 6 weeks for the ink. I ordered it off of Amazon and just standard shipping. It wasn't Prime or anything like that, so it actually took quite a while for it to get here, and I couldn't wait to get into this pen. And I couldn't wait to change the nib on the pen to see if it wrote any better. And it does write better. I kind of like the heavier lines I write in a kind of a blocky gorilla style. I don't have very nice handwriting, so the fine nib just looks strange when I use a fine nib. I only have one other pen that even has a fine nib in it, and most everything I use is a medium. And because I already have a Safari with a medium nib in it, I decided to go ahead and give a broad nib a try, and we'll see how it goes. I'll throw this into my rotation next week or the week after and see how I like it. I don't know if that broad nib is going to be something that I like writing with all the time, because I'll try with some other inks, but it comes out pretty heavy, although it dries pretty nice. Just got to give it some time. So anyway, that is my look at Rohrer and Klingner Leipziger Schwarz ink. I've heard it described as a complex black. And also a look at how to change the nib on a Lamy Safari. Turns out it's really easy, and now I have an extra fine nib, although I don't see myself using it. Not a fan of those the fine nibs. So anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time, see you then. Goodbye.